The immigration piece is obviously incredibly grave, very serious, very real, very much on the horizon. There are other parts, though, of Trump's agenda that he's announced, whether it's like ending Bidenomics and starting MAGAnomics, or annexing Greenland or buying Greenland. And I wonder kind of whether your thinking has changed at all about the sort of seriousness with which we should cover and discuss this sort of pie in the sky ideas like making Canada the 51st state or taking the control of the Panama Canal or Greenland, which, by the way, the Danish government is not dismissing as a joke, right?
Sure.
He seems more emboldened. He has national security staff that worked on the Greenland thing in his first term. He has a different crew coming in that seems much more willing to bend the knee and genuflect and do whatever he wants. Do you have a different sort of thesis for how to talk about and analyze the more bonkers ideas that Trump floats?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I have said over and over and over again, watch what they do, not what they say. But you're right. Like, it raises the question of whether or not what they're saying crosses over into territory that needs to be covered, not just for its shock value, but because it's potentially going to be something they're going to do, and we need to start preparing for it. And I think it's a difficult call all the time, just because he's saying something and it's shocking and transgressive and stupid on its face doesn't mean it's not something he's going to do.
Yeah.
And in this case with the Greenland stuff, it's a sustained discussion, and you see people writing opinion columns at the New York Times about what's the rationale behind this? I mean, people going along as if this is a good idea, or as if this is anything other than a medieval a medieval idea of a little boy's idea about what kings get to do. Take more territory, make country bigger, is disturbing, right? You would think that we as a country have a more adult idea about what we do with our power and our territorial boundaries. But once Trump has articulated it, everybody fills in the rationale behind him. So, yeah, I mean, every authoritarian leader the world over has always at some point turned expansionist. Right? They like wars because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel big. It gets them the kind of adulation and, in some cases, emergency powers that they like. I don't know why we should expect Trump to be different. Him picking a war with a NATO ally is also a great way to instantly dissolve the NATO alliance, which I know is something I think we all think is something that he'd like to do by hook or by crook.
Maybe he'll just dress up in the suit of armor and not actually try and annex other places. Who can know? I do wonder.
We could do White House Renaissance Fair instead of the Easter egg roll. If that would scratch that itch,
yeah,
I would
giant turkey legs
that.
For all. Why not? You'll wear a maiden crown. Maybe not. Here's my question. Given how much of a live wire Trump is, how much he's vowed to persecute his enemies, there's news tonight that President Biden is reportedly considering preemptive pardons of Trump's political enemies, maybe on January 19th or 20th. What's your feeling about that?
I got to say, I feel like I'm out of step with most of the commentariat on this, because from the very beginning, from the first time that was first reported, I just felt like, oh, yeah, definitely, you should do that. And I know it's not that simple. And I know that I understand the arguments against it, which is, as Biden himself has articulated, these people have done nothing wrong. Why do they need a pardon? I also understand, if you give these pardons, then that will give you less of a moral leg to stand on for criticizing Trump's abuse of the pardon power. Trump is already very happy abusing the pardon power. Trump gave a pardon to Jared Kushner's dad and now is making him ambassador to France. The idea that Trump is looking for other recent presidents to decide what's morally and politically acceptable when it comes to pardons is ridiculous. He pardoned Paul Manafort. He, interfered in Roger Stone's sentencing and got Michael Flynn's plea over it. I mean, the guy, anyway. The idea that there's any sort of moral calculus that involves a comparison of Donald Trump to anybody on these things, I just think is not living in reality. And I think that Biden realistically can count on the fact that Trump is not going to act in good faith, that if he's going to put in an attorney general who at the Republican National Convention said, yeah, lock her up, I love that. If he's going to put somebody like Kash QAnon Patel and the head of the FBI who says he's going to abolish the FBI and turn it into a museum of the deep state. I mean, yeah, you're not talking about a good faith cast of characters who's planning on using the criminal justice system in a way that, you know, meets our historical standards for what counts as serious and well-predicated action. And so, yeah, he should protect people who don't deserve to be abused with that system. And Trump has been, and Patel has been open enough about, they've been open enough about who exactly they're planning on going after. They should just take the entire list of 60 people in Patel's book, and on the basis of the fact that they're in Patel's book, give them all pardons. All the people who Trump has threatened on the campaign trail, give them pardons. You're not dealing with somebody who's looking to you to make, you know, fine, morally grained distinctions here about how he's going to use the pardon power based on what you do with it. Just protect people who don't deserve to be destroyed by these people who are promising to do it. I just don't think it's that hard. What do you think about it?
I agree with you. And I also think the fact that the White House is floating the notion of potential preemptive pardons right now when it's the closing hours of the Biden administration is a pretty good indicator that it's going to happen, or that they're quite close to convincing the president, because otherwise, why confirm it? We'll see that.
I just think, like with the January 6th committee, for example, like I'm sure there's distinctions between some of those people wanting the pardon and some of them not. Ignore that. Just give them all the same pardon. Give the same pardon to literally everybody who's in Kash Patel's book, to everybody who Trump has singled out on the campaign trail, or that members of his campaign have singled out. Members of the transition have singled out. Just do it. And yeah, people will grind their teeth about it, but it will also prevent those people from being destroyed by a bad faith incoming administration that's promising to destroy them for political reasons and as an abuse of our criminal justice system. You can protect it with the stroke of a pen. You can protect those people with the stroke of a pen. And I just really think that President Biden should do it, and I hope he does.
I do too. We are in a completely different landscape. Rachel, as you know, I'm going to be out on the road for 100 days. And I ask you, can I bring you anything back?
Yes, you can bring me a lot of field reporting that we're going to be using at 9 p.m. every single time you bring something back. I mean, honestly, the world is your oyster in terms of the airtime that you want and when you want it and whose show you want to be on. 9 o'clock is available to you for all of it that you want. I can't wait to see what you're going to do. Do you know where you're going first?
We're going to be in Washington. We're going to be doing our inaugural coverage with you. Chris Hayes and I are going to be anchoring the afternoon, and then I'm down to Washington, D.C., which is where a lot of things are apparently happening, including the end of Bidenomics and the beginning of MAGAnomics and a whole host of other things. But as you say, I will be bringing it all back to you, as well as some commemorative keychains and maybe some snow globes. Sky's the limit, Rachel Maddow.
I will keep your seat warm for 100 days and then very happily vacate it once you are done with this project.
If you need takeout options for lunch, I got plenty, my friend. Thank you for spending some more of your Friday night that we are grabbing back from you. Thank you for doing it early. You are a goddess. Thank you for helping us understand what is in front of us and what is soon to be our reality for the next 100 days. Great, Rachel Maddow. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I'll see you Monday.
See ya.